When I first start out simplifying complex fractions, I find it helpful to focus solely on kind of the numerator of the complex fraction first, and then come back and work with the denominator. So thinking back to our skills from 7.2, you have your 1 over x plus 2/3. You're going to need a common denominator. When I think about what's my least common denominator for those two fractions, I always kind of think first, what does this denominator have that this denominator needs? And this one has a 3, and this one needs a 3. So I'm going to give a 3 to that denominator, and if I do it in the bottom, I'll need to do it in the top as well. So then I think to myself, well, what does this denominator have that this denominator needs? This denominator has a 3x, this one only has a 3, so I'm going to have to give the 2/3 an x in the denominator and in the numerator there. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite. I like to write out all my steps. The 3 times the 1 is a 3 over 3x, and then we have a plus, and then a 2 times x all over 3x. Now that we have common denominators, we can combine those two fractions into one fraction with a denominator of 3x, and we'll have a 3 plus 2x on top. Now, I'm a little, how does one say, I don't want to say compulsive, but for me, I like to write more in a standard form here, and the 2x would be written in front of the 3. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 2x plus 3 all over 3x. And there's nothing left to do in the numerator. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to work with the denominator over here. Now I see a 1 plus 1 over x. And so my immediate thought is let's change this 1 into a fraction. Any whole number can be written as over 1. And so then I ask myself again, what does this denominator have that this denominator needs? It needs an x. So I'll multiply by an x over x. What does this denominator have that this denominator needs? You might say, well, it needs a 1, but if I multiply this by 1, it's not going to change anything. So we've got our common denominator now of over x and over x. So rewrite. X times 1 is x over x plus 1 over x, which ends up being x plus 1 over x. And I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite that down here. Now that I've kind of combined my fractions in the numerator and the denominator, I have a single fraction in the numerator, I have a single fraction in the denominator. I'm going to multiply by reciprocals. This is how I like to do it. I like to multiply by my x over x plus 1 in the denominator. But if I do it down there, I'm going to have to do it up here as well. And what will happen is my x and my x reduce. My x plus 1 and my x plus 1 reduces. Up here in the numerators, I see an x on the bottom and an x on the top. That will reduce, but I don't ever see any other common factors, and so that ends up being 2x plus 3, multiply straight across, 2x plus 3, and then we have the 3 times the x plus 1, and I'm going to leave that in factored form. It's good to leave your denominators in factored form always, just for some skills that you're going to be doing a little bit later on when you get to calculus. And we're done.